Now on GarageBand we all know that the autoplay function with the smart instruments can give you some pretty good results, instant results, and you don't need to be a musician in order to make it do these things. However, every single iOS device in the known universe has exactly the same patterns on it, so it would be nice to try and ring the changes somewhat. Now, I've got my smart piano open here, and if I just press a C, I've got Autoplay 1 shown here. That's great. Gives us something to start with. So if I record 4 bars of this, and then we'll go in and make a few changes and a few music theory tips along the way. And there we go. Now, if I just go to my main working space now, we're going to have a little go at changing a few of these chords. Now, as an aside, just as a brief aside, you can actually edit the chords here. If I go back into the smart piano and go to edit chords, I can change what some of these chords do, but it doesn't work in autoplay. It'll only work if I just go back to the smart piano. If I switch autoplay off and edit chords, you can actually change what the chord does. There's a C, C7, C major 7, etc. You can do that, but it doesn't work in autoplay. It'll just play the same pattern. So it's kind of up to you to have a little tweak. So just going back into my main window, there is the piano that I just recorded. If I go to the edit window, you can see that there's really a repeating pattern, as you could hear. A chord, a C major chord or any major chord, has 3 different notes in it, main notes. Doesn't mean we can't add more notes or that we can't change a few along the way. Don't forget, if you play a chord, the audience has heard the chord and can kind of latch onto it, which means that you can do other stuff. And I'll just show you what's in a C chord. We've got a C, an E, and a G. But the G on this pattern has been put right down the bottom here. There we go. So we've got C and E together and then G. There it goes. C, E, and then G afterwards. Fine. But we can change a few of these notes to make the chord, make the whole autoplay thing a little bit more exciting. Now it depends, of course. If you've got a vocal line, maybe you do want the basic chord underneath so that the vocals have got freedom to work and to express and to basically have the melody. But let's say we're dealing with an intro on the piano. We can change a few of these notes, but what do we change them to? Well, C major is reasonably straightforward because it's all white notes. So as long as you steer clear of the black notes, you can pretty much get going on this. The advantage, of course, with programming is that you get used to the shapes of the screen, which means that you can program in other keys without worrying too much about the theory. So I'm going to lower that E to the D for the second note. Now, that is the second of your C major scale. A C major scale goes C, which is the first, D, which is the second, E, which is the third, which is important in your chord, F, which is the fourth, we'll talk about that in a minute, fifth is G, sixth is A, and the seventh is B. And then the eighth note of the scale, the completion of that scale, back to C, is the eighth note, or some people just refer to it as the first again. So let's see what happens with this. Okay, so instantly we've got a bit of a flavour here. It'd be nice to create a shape within the chord. Don't forget we're sort of on the intro here. Or it could be the vocal line that is doubled in the piano. Let's try moving the fourth E to an F. Now, I said at just a moment ago about the F. The fourth of the scale is a little bit, you've got to be a little bit careful with it because the chord of C major, which is C, E, G, if you put the fourth with it, it's only a half step away from the E, which is the most important note in C major. So you've got to be a little bit careful with this. But But there we go. I've now interpolated. I've joined the dots between E, D, E, F, G. So you can see a nice little sort of flowing scale up there. We could keep going. We could make the G up here into an A. That's quite a nice little shape there. Now, how about if we also played with the dynamics? So, if I just go to velocity on here, make the first one reasonably loud, but then make each subsequent one just build slightly from a sort of medium quiet. I'm going to change the final one so that I'm now using every single note of that scale. And there we have our C major chord with some changes applied. Now, of course, when you're just dealing with chords on their own, that's a little bit different. So if I just... there you go. That's your first thing where you can change the notes within your sort of running broken chords. If I now delete that, there we go. I'm going to go back into my autoplay off now. So I'm now going to record. I'm just going to go back to edit chords and delete what I had with the C major 7 there. None. There we go. So let's say I'm going to play in my own rhythm now. Okay, so there's a sort of fairly ham-fisted approach at playing the piano there, but we can do some things with that. Now, first of all, I'm going to go into the edit window and I'm going to select all of these notes. And I'm actually going to lower the velocity overall. I know you can do this on the smart piano, set the velocity lower, but very often it's more sort of inclined to play loudly than softly. Now, when you look at this, you can see that there are only 3 different notes over that entire pattern. Yes, they're wide-ranging, but actually the 3 different notes have been used in lots of different combinations. So, that first chord, I tell you what, I'm just going to make this go back to the beginning so that the chord actually starts. Just to show, just to illustrate this. So the first chord has only 3 notes in it. But what if we started to add stuff? Oh. Just going to redo that, change position of note. I'm going to go to the pencil tool and add a note. So this is the second note. Now that's quite loud at the moment. Now what that's done is it's given it a little bit more flavour. It's just added something to that C chord. Now I'm actually going to move the E up there so that I've got that D in between the C and the E to make it sound a little bit more realistic. So that you've got these 3 notes together at the top, which give you quite a nice little flavour. Now I can do the same thing. I could maybe take the D that I just added, change it to an A instead. There we go. Now beware of adding too many notes. This is like a sort of pretend supermarket cheesecake that says it's bursting with flavours, but yeah, really bursting with flavours. You want the Fortnum and Mason version, which has subtle flavours. So it's just like, it's like this fistful of notes. Now we have a bass note down here, which is a C, which means you don't actually need it in the right hand at all, because it's a waste of a note. Which means you can start to just tweak stuff. And let's say you can create some really sort of nice sounding chords, and it's still C major. It's just you've made it sound a bit more expensive. Of course, we've got to watch out with the velocity, with the volume of all of these notes, so that these flavours still remain subtle. So, for example, the E, I could make that reasonably loud, and the G, but make the extra ones a little bit quieter, so that you've still got that essence of C major, but you've just got those extra notes just nestling away in the background. And of course, we can change that for the other chords as well. Beware of complexity though, but really the important thing is to use the rhythms that Apple have given you here and just do something with them to make it individual sounding. That's really the point here.